There is a word that for many of us is the heaviest word in the human language. It's a word so small, yet it can feel like a declaration of war. That word is no. Think about it. The moment someone asks something of you, a favor, your time, your energy, and your soul quietly whispers no, what happens inside you? A wave of something cold and sharp washes over you. A voice in your head immediately starts to panic. They'll be disappointed. They'll think I'm selfish. They won't like me anymore. And that feeling, that heavy, sinking feeling that settles in your chest, is guilt. It feels like a moral compass, doesn't it? Like an internal judge, telling you that you are about to do something wrong, something selfish, something bad. But what if I told you that feeling of guilt is not your compass? What if it's your cage? A beautifully constructed, deeply familiar prison built long ago to keep you safe, but which now holds you captive. The work of Carl Jung, the deep dive into our own shadow, reveals a profound truth. That guilt we feel when we try to set a boundary is not a measure of our character. It is the echo of an old survival program. A program that once taught you a dangerous equation. My agreeableness equals my safety. My needs equal a threat. This video is an invitation to begin uninstalling that program, to understand where this guilt truly comes from, and to discover that on the other side of it is not selfishness, it's freedom. To understand this guilt, we have to travel back in time, not in a metaphorical sense. We have to travel back into the logic of your own nervous system. Because the guilt you feel today when you say no is not a present-day emotion. It is a ghost, a deeply stored memory from a time when your no felt like a threat to your very survival. Let's be very clear about this. The guilt is not a moral failing. It is a threat signal fired by an old and brilliant protection program. This program has a name. In psychology, it's often called the fawn response. It is one of the 4 primary trauma responses: fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. Fawning is the instinct to appease a perceived threat, to become agreeable, helpful, and pleasing in order to neutralize danger and ensure you are not attacked or abandoned. And it is born in childhood, in the moments we learned a critical, unspoken rule. The rule that our safety depended on someone else's comfort. A child's brain has one primary directive: to maintain attachment to their caregiver at all costs. Because for a child, attachment equals survival. A child is like an emotional seismograph, constantly reading the environment for tremors of disapproval, anger, or stress in their caregivers. If a child grows up in an environment where their own needs, their own anger, their own authentic expressions cause a parent to become angry, distant, or overwhelmed, the child learns a powerful lesson. My needs are dangerous. My truth is a problem. My job is to keep my caregivers calm and happy so that they will continue to take care of me. Let's think of a girl we'll call Emily. Emily's father had a volatile temper. Her mother was anxious and always walking on eggshells. The home was only peaceful when everyone was happy. One day, Emily, just 7 years old, comes home from school, tired and wanting to be alone. Her mother asks her to help set the table for dinner. Emily says simply, "No, I'm tired." it was her truth, a small, innocent boundary. But her father overhears, and his voice booms, "Don't you dare be disrespectful to your mother." Her mother's face fills with panic and fear. In that moment, Emily's nervous system is flooded with terror. It creates a powerful equation, a blueprint for survival. To be agreeable was to be safe. To have needs was to become a threat. She learns to say yes not out of love, but out of a deep, primal fear. I remember this feeling myself. I was very young, maybe 5 or 6. I had saved a special piece of candy, a rare treat all day long. A visiting cousin saw it and started to cry because they wanted it. My mother looked at me with that familiar, tired expression and said, "Just give it to them, don't cause a fuss." I remember the feeling of my hand closing around the candy and the war inside me, but the fear of my mother's disapproval, that quiet sigh of disappointment, was far more terrifying than the loss of the candy. So, I gave it away. And in that moment, I felt a strange mix of relief from avoiding conflict and a hollow ache of self-betrayal. That ache was the first seed of this guilt. It was the program being installed. This program becomes our default setting. It gets wired into our nervous system. It's no longer a conscious thought, it's an automatic, physiological reaction. So now, as an adult, when you are in a situation where you need to say no, your conscious adult brain knows it is perfectly reasonable. But that old program, the fawn response, is triggered. It doesn't see your boss or your friend or your partner. It sees the angry father. It sees the disappointed mother. It sees the threat to your survival. And it sounds the alarm. That alarm is the feeling of guilt. Guilt is the nervous system screaming, "Warning, you are about to do something that was once dangerous. You are risking abandonment. Appease the threat immediately. Say yes." This is why it feels so physical. The racing heart, the knot in your stomach, the lump in your throat. It's your body preparing for a threat that is no longer real. It's an old software running on new hardware. And this is where Carl Jung's work on the shadow becomes so vital. Because in order for this survival program to run effectively, it had to take your true, authentic self, the self that has needs, the self that has boundaries, the self that can say a clear, unapologetic no, and it had to define that self as bad or dangerous. It had to push that entire part of you into the darkness, into the shadow. So the person you are today, the kind, agreeable, people-pleasing you, is the persona, the mask that was built to survive. And the guilt you feel is the alarm system designed to protect that mask at all costs. It is the guardian at the gate of your own shadow, trying to prevent you from ever meeting the powerful, authentic self that lives there. It believes it is protecting you, but in reality, it is keeping you in a prison of your own making. So take a moment and ask yourself with gentleness, where did you first learn that your no was dangerous? Who taught you that your needs were a problem? You don't have to have a dramatic story like Emily's. Sometimes it's as quiet as a piece of candy. Just seeing the origin is the first step to rewriting the code.
So we understand now that guilt is a phantom alarm, a ghost from the past trying to protect us from a danger that no longer exists. Our logical mind knows this, but when the alarm sounds, it feels so real, so visceral, that we do anything to make it stop. And the quickest way to silence the alarm of guilt is to give in, to say yes. Every time you do this, every time you override your own truth to appease someone else, you achieve a moment of relief. The fire alarm of guilt goes silent. The tension dissipates. You have successfully avoided conflict. You have maintained your role as the nice, easygoing, helpful person. The survival program has worked perfectly. But this relief comes at a terrible hidden price. A price that is far heavier than the momentary discomfort of guilt. That price is the slow, steady erosion of your own soul. Carl Jung taught that the psyche is always seeking balance. For every action, there is a consequence. And the consequence of consistently silencing your own truth is an act of self-betrayal. Let's be very clear with this language. It is not just being nice. It is an act of abandoning yourself. In that moment when your body screams no and your mouth says yes, you are sending a powerful message to your own deepest self. A message that says, your needs do not matter. Your energy is not as important as their comfort. You are not worthy of your own protection. Each act of self-betrayal is like placing a small, smooth stone into a bag you carry on your back. 1 stone is nothing. You barely feel it. 10 stones, you start to notice the weight. 1,000 stones, collected over a lifetime of people-pleasing, and you find yourself crushed under the unbearable weight of them. This weight has a name. It is called resentment. Resentment is the shadow side of the people-pleaser. It is the toxic byproduct of 1,000 unsaid no's. It is the stored energy of every time you gave when you were empty, smiled when you were angry, and agreed when you felt violated. Let's go back to Emily. Now she's 35. She's a loving mother and a dedicated graphic designer. Her sister calls her. Emily, I know it's last minute, but could you possibly watch the kids this Saturday? We have a chance to go away for the weekend. Emily's heart sinks. Saturday is the one day she has carved out for herself, the one day to work on her own art project, the one thing that makes her feel alive. Her body screams no, but the old program kicks in. The guilt alarm starts to blare. She hears her mother's voice in her head. Family helps family. Don't be selfish. She imagines her sister's disappointment. So she says, of course, no problem at all. The guilt alarm is silenced. She feels that momentary relief. But later that day, her husband comes home and asks a simple question. What's for dinner? And Emily snaps. I don't know, why don't you figure it out for once? Do I have to do everything? The anger is sharp, and it seems to come from nowhere. Her husband is confused. He doesn't know that his question was not the real target. The real target was her sister, and more accurately, the real target was herself, for abandoning her own needs yet again. The poison of resentment, born from her self-betrayal, had found a place to leak out. This is the devastating cycle of the people-pleaser. You say yes to avoid the guilt of disappointing others, but that yes creates a self-betrayal that breeds resentment, and that resentment eventually erupts as an angry snap, which then creates a new, even deeper layer of guilt and shame. It is a perfect, self-sustaining prison. You are trapped in a loop, running from one feeling only to crash into another. The only way to break the cycle is to be willing to feel the guilt, to stand your ground when the alarm goes off, to understand that the momentary, intense discomfort of guilt is infinitely less toxic than the chronic, soul-crushing weight of resentment. Think of it this way. Guilt is like a loud, obnoxious guard at the gate of a beautiful garden. The garden is your freedom, your authentic life. The guard shouts at you, tells you you're not allowed in, that you're a bad person for even trying. For years, you've believed the guard and turned back, but you've been living in the barren wasteland outside the garden, growing bitter and resentful. Shadow work is the process of walking calmly up to that guard, looking it in the eye, and saying, "I hear you. I know you think you are protecting me, but I am going into the garden now." The guard will scream. It will protest. It will tell you all the terrible things that will happen. This is the moment of choice. This is where the real work lies. Not in fighting the guard, but in being willing to endure its noise, for the sake of the freedom that lies on the other side. Every time you choose to honor your no, despite the guilt, you are taking back your power. You are telling yourself and the universe that you are worthy of your own care. You are choosing the discomfort of growth over the false comfort of appeasement. And in so doing, you begin to drain the swamp of resentment that has been poisoning your life from the inside out. You start to find that your relationships become more honest. Your anger no longer needs to erupt in misplaced explosions, and your yes, when you do give it, becomes a true gift, not a resentful obligation. This is the path to freedom, and it begins with a single, courageous step, right through the heart of your own guilt.
So how do we begin? How do we walk past that screaming guard of guilt and step into the garden of our own freedom? The answer is not to fight the guard. The answer is not to pretend it isn't there. The answer is to start small. So small, the guard barely notices. The journey to a guilt-free no is not a single dramatic leap. It is a series of small, conscious, courageous steps. It is the practice of building a new muscle, the muscle of self-worth. And like any muscle, it starts with light weights. I want to offer you a tangible, practical exercise, something you can begin this week. I call it the practice of the safe no. A safe no is a refusal given in a low-stakes situation, a situation where the consequences of disappointing someone are minimal. This is not about saying no to your boss's major project or your mother's plea to move back home. Not yet. This is about finding the training ground. Your first task is simply to identify a potential safe no. Look at your week ahead. Maybe it's a friend asking you to go to a movie you have no interest in seeing. Maybe it's a colleague asking for help on a minor task when your own plate is full. Maybe it's a bake sale you feel obligated to contribute to. Identify one very small, low-stakes request where you would normally, automatically, say yes. That is your target. Now, for the practice itself. When the request comes, your old program will fire up. The guilt alarm will start to ring. Your job is not to silence the alarm. Your job is to create a tiny pocket of space before you respond. And in that space, you will use a powerful tool, a delay tactic. Instead of an immediate yes or a terrifying no, you will say one of these phrases. Let me check my calendar and get back to you. I need to think about that for a moment. Can I let you know soon? That sounds interesting. Let me see if I can make that work. These phrases are magic because they buy you the one thing you need most: time. Time to let the initial panicked wave of guilt wash over you without acting on it. Time to step away from the situation and connect with your own truth. Time to move from an unconscious reaction to a conscious choice. Once you have that space, you can do the real work.
find a quiet moment. Right now, even as you listen, I invite you to do this with me. Place a hand on your heart. Just feel the physical sensation of it, the warmth, the beat. This is your center. This is your truth. And from this place, you ask yourself a simple question. What do I truly want to do? Not what you should do, not what a nice person would do. What do you, in your heart of hearts, want? Maybe the answer is, I really want a quiet night in. Maybe it's, I really need to focus on my own work right now. The answer will be clear. It always is when we get quiet enough to listen. Now comes the courageous part. Honoring that answer. You go back to the person and you deliver your safe no. You can be kind, you can be gracious, but you must be clear. Thank you so much for thinking of me, but I won't be able to make it this time. I appreciate you asking, but I have to pass. I'm sorry, but my answer is no. And then you prepare for the guilt. Because it will come. The alarm will sound. But this time, it's different. You are ready for it. You are expecting it. You can greet it like an old, overprotective friend. Ah, hello, guilt. I see you. Thank you for trying to keep me safe, but I've got this. You sit with the discomfort. You breathe through it. You remind yourself this feeling is a ghost. It is an echo. It is not the truth of this present moment. You are not a bad person. You are a person who is finally honoring themselves. I will be honest with you. The first time I did this, truly did this, it felt like I was breaking a law of the universe. I said no to a family gathering because I was simply tired. The guilt was immense. I felt selfish, difficult, unloving. I spent the entire day wrestling with the urge to call back and change my answer. But I didn't. And the next day, something amazing happened. The world did not end. My family did not abandon me. And in the place where the guilt had been, a new feeling started to grow. A quiet, solid feeling of self-respect. A sense of inner strength I hadn't felt before. I had met the guardian at the gate and I had walked through. This practice, the safe no, is your first step through that gate. The more you practice, the easier it becomes. The muscle of self-worth gets stronger. The alarm of guilt gets quieter. You begin to rewire your nervous system, teaching it a new truth. My no does not lead to abandonment. It leads to authenticity. It leads to trust. It leads to freedom. This is not a journey of becoming selfish. It is a journey of becoming sovereign, of understanding that you cannot pour from an empty cup, of realizing that your greatest gift to the world is not a resentful yes, but a whole, rested, and authentic self. And that self is built one courageous no at a time.
We have journeyed to the very root of our guilt. We've seen that it is not a reflection of our character, but a relic of our past. A powerful, outdated survival program designed by a child to stay safe. A program that has run our lives on autopilot for far too long. We have learned that to avoid the momentary sting of guilt, we have paid a far greater price, the slow poison of resentment and the heavy weight of self-betrayal. We've seen that this cycle, this prison of yes, is the engine that feeds our shadow and drains our soul. And most importantly, we have discovered that there is a way out. A path to freedom that is paved not with grand gestures, but with small, courageous acts of self-honoring. The practice of the safe no. This understanding is more than just knowledge. It is a key. The key to the cage you thought had no door. The journey of shadow work, this path that Carl Jung illuminated for us, is about using that key. It's about choosing again and again to value your own truth over the temporary comfort of others. This is not a call to become a selfish person. It is a call to become a whole person. A person who understands that true kindness cannot flow from a place of obligation. True generosity cannot come from an empty well. Your greatest service to the world is not to be a depleted martyr, but to be a full, authentic, and sovereign human being. And that requires boundaries. It requires the sacred and sometimes terrifying power of no. But as you begin this practice, you may find that not all your no's are met with understanding. You may start to notice that your anger, your newly claimed boundary setter, is not always welcome. You might even be told that your anger is wrong or too much. This can be incredibly confusing, especially when you are just beginning to see it as a source of strength. How do we hold on to the wisdom of our anger when the world tells us it's a flaw? How do we heal it instead of just expressing it? Understanding the true nature of your anger and how to integrate its power in a healthy, healing way is our next vital conversation. And that is the journey we will take in our next video, Why Your Anger Isn't Wrong, Carl Jung's Shadow Healing. I hope you will be there. For today, your work is to be brave in small ways. Our community here is a space to witness and support that bravery. Your journey matters, and your story can be a permission slip for someone else. In the comments below, I invite you to share one thing. What is one safe no you are willing to practice this week? You don't have to have done it yet. Simply declaring your intention is a powerful act. By sharing it, you make a commitment to yourself and you remind others that they have a right to do the same. Thank you for walking this path with me. Remember, the guilt will feel loud at first. Let it. It is just the sound of old prison bars rattling as you finally walk free. Be kind to yourself. You are doing the bravest work there is. You are coming home.